Nick Wright joins us. You know, you've grew up in Kansas City and lived in Houston. It's funny about perception. Like, Houston should be overjoyed. I know they're disappointed, but where they were 3 years ago, they should be overjoyed. And yet I think Detroit wakes up this morning and goes, what are we? The Lions worry me, Nick, because like the Eagles, if they lose those two coordinators, every year a great team regresses. I look at the Lions and wonder, Dan Campbell's culture thing may have a ceiling here. Anything that worries you on that list?
Oh, well, I mean, worries me on the list. I mean, you have the two-time defending champion 1 seed that's undefeated in the playoffs against the Bills, behind the Bills, but we can address that in a moment. As far as concerns me about the Lions, I don't want to panic, but I also don't want to underreact. I think it would probably be a good bet to say in 5 years, are we going to look back and say, oh, damn, their best chance was in 2023 and 2024.
Right.
In 2023 when they have a 2-score lead in the NFC Championship game.
Yep.
And then in 2024 when they're playing a rookie at home in their building. And look, there's nothing you can do about the defensive injuries. That's bad luck, and that's the cruelty of the NFL. You can maybe ask your coordinator, who's now the head coach of the Bears, you know the player who in his brief NFL career has been suspended twice and about an hour ago had, let's call it, a colorful, erotic celebration in the end zone?
Yeah.
Let's not trust his judgment to throw the biggest pass of our season. And maybe let's put the ball in some more trustworthy hands.
Yeah.
The problem is the trustworthy hands are Jared Goff's tiny hands, and he had a brutal game, and you wonder how much that's going to haunt him moving forward. I do think the Lions are excellent, and the injuries is mostly what killed them. But the reality in this league is very simple. If you don't have a superhero at quarterback, everything's got to go perfect. You can win, but everything's got to go perfect. The Lions have a great civilian at quarterback, not a superhero.
Yeah.
And when things get a little askew and he needs to carry you, he had his worst game in the worst moment. So I'm not like selling my Lions stock, but I wouldn't buy any more of it either.
So I defended, again, I know I'm a Lamar apologist, but on the interception, Bateman stopped running. Mark Andrews dropped a 2-point conversion. Mark Andrews fumbled, and on the snap Lamar fumbled, he had to be Superman to save it. I'm not saying he was great, but I'm saying he continues to go into these playoff games. They have no number one receiver. Zay Flowers didn't play. Mark Andrews had his worst game as a pro.
They were the favorite. I listened to you all year talk about how complete the team is. I am not going to allow this to happen everywhere. Because all year long, it's the same song and dance 2 years in a row. The Ravens are the best team. DVOA says they're one of the 10 best teams ever. Forget the fact that they lost 5 times. No. They're coming together at the right time. Also have to hear this. Look at the numbers. Lamar's the MVP. Look at how 4 picks all year. And if you watch the tape on them, none of them were his fault. They were all good passes. That's the narrative going into the playoffs. Then the playoff loss happens, and it's like, man, that roster wasn't that good. And why didn't they let Derrick Henry run the ball that much? Why did they put the ball in the hands of the league MVP? We can't do it. I'm not going to kill Lamar. He was very good in the second half and almost pulled it out of the fire. Now, the Mark Andrews drop, Colin, if we are being fair, because we're all gamblers here, if he had caught that 2-point conversion, the Bills would have been live betting still like minus 400 to win the game. Do the math on it, because it would have been Bills ball, tie game, minute 33 left. The Ravens would have had, with 2 timeouts, the Ravens would have had to get the stop and then also win in overtime. So even with the Mark Andrews, if he catches it, the Ravens are big dogs, and they're big dogs because a player who did not have a single multi-turnover game all year turned the ball over twice in the first half. We can blame Rashad Bateman for a pass. You know who doesn't? Lamar Jackson, who said it flatly. I didn't look the safety off, overthrew the ball. You might be right. The snap was bad. He had recovered from that and then set the ball on the ground. We are now 8 career playoff games. 4 times he has multiple turnovers. That's half. 94 career regular season games. 14 times he has multiple turnovers. That's 15%. Colin, you were right on the Peyton Manning comparison, which is why I do think eventually Lamar will win a Super Bowl. What I don't think is right is that when we were in the midst of this with Peyton Manning, everyone was killing him. Everyone's like, how can you be the best player in the league in the regular season and then consistently not good in the playoffs? And with Lamar Jackson, everyone's like, man, he tried so hard and he wants it so bad. It's patronizing to the player. And so, no, I don't buy this. And the number of people who yelled at me all year, he's the league MVP, and then got on TV Monday and they're like, why'd they give Lamar the ball so much? Derrick Henry's right there. Well, then maybe he's the league MVP. I don't know, but we'll do it again next year. Lamar can win all the MVPs, get all the first-team All-Pros, and then everyone can, in the playoffs, be like, who could have seen that coming? I mean, I don't know. I just don't buy it. Great player. Struggles in the biggest moments.
Let's talk Jayden Daniels. I think Washington can win.
Yeah.
Andrew Luck is the best.
Yeah,
I remember Elway. I'm old enough to remember Elway's rookie year, kind of. He played about 3/4 of the games. He had like double the picks as he did touchdowns, and he's an all-timer. Could have played baseball or football. And then I watched Andrew Luck, who threw a lot of picks, but boy, he was good with a bad team. Well, I would argue the Commanders' team is closer to Andrew Luck's than it is any of these like playoff teams that he's playing against. He was the best fourth-quarter quarterback. I think we're seeing one of the great quarterbacks. I don't think it took long. In fact, there were practices with Patrick Mahomes his rookie year. There were practices that video got out, and people were like, you're not going to believe it. There was discussions about Lamar as a rookie. You're like, yeah, we can't tackle him in practice. Herbert's first game. Joe Burrow with a horrible offensive line year 1. I don't think it's a fluke. I think Jayden Daniels, I think we're looking at like 70% Mahomes, 25% Lamar. I think it's different. His decision-making makes no sense. I mean, Dan Quinn's a good coach. He's not Andy Reid. Cliff Kingsbury's a good coordinator. Was he McVay? You think I'm crazy? I think the best quarterbacks in the league are
I don't think you're crazy.
Mahomes, Allen, Burrow. I'd put Lamar 4. I'm not so sure Jayden Daniels isn't 5, and I don't think I'm overreaching.
So here's the thing. I don't think you're overreaching either. The only pump the brakes piece of this is there was a little bit of this with CJ after the playoffs last year. There was even a little bit of this with Jordan Love after the playoffs last year. I think they both regressed a bit this year. Jayden, though, has had a better season and playoff run than either of those players. It's the greatest rookie season ever. I've been skeptical of Jayden's ability to stay healthy.
Same.
Because of his frame and his play style.
Same thing.
But that's a different discussion.
Right.
That is a totally different discussion than how good he is right now. By the way, despite everything I said about Lamar, he's consensus, no doubt, a top 5 quarterback. In fact, there are 4 consensus, no doubt, top 5 quarterbacks. You listed them. Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Lamar. At number 5, though, there's about 6 guys who people could make an argument for.
Yep.
There's an argument for Justin Herbert if we pretend the playoffs don't exist. There's an argument for my guy Baker Mayfield. There's an argument for Matt Stafford, who I would have had there. Some people would say Dak when he's healthy. Some people had been arguing Brock Purdy until this year happened. Jordan Love, CJ Stroud. There's 7 guys you could argue go there. I totally agree with you, Colin. He now has as strong of an argument as anybody. Like, I don't know definitively who the 5th best quarterback in the league is, but I do know that if somebody says it's Jayden Daniels, the really only argument against it is he hasn't done enough yet, but what he's been allowed to do, which is only play this 1 year, he continues to exceed expectations. No, so I don't think you're, like, who, I think I would say Stafford is fifth.
Yeah.
But Stafford's also turning 37 and, maybe the best football's behind him. I don't know. It's open for him. That's for darn sure.
Yeah, I mean, we said that about C.J. Stroud, but C.J. Stroud wasn't hypermobile. He was a pure pocket guy. His comp was Goff. This kid and we all said this coming in. I watched a ton of his college. There was a lot of Lamar here, but not Lamar, so he got seduced by running. He's still a pocket guy. So he's better than Lamar as a rookie from the pocket, and I'll be honest with you, he's more athletic than Mahomes running. May not be him the thrower, but I don't know. I see a lot of Lamar. I see a lot of Mahomes. Finally, though. So we both love Chicago and our friend Danny Parkins, and I had said, quarterbacks and coordinators, it kind of depends where you land. And the Bears are a gravel road with politics and potholes everywhere. And he just came from Detroit, and Dan Campbell helped make that, with the O-line and running game, a paved road. I don't know if it's going to be LaFleur or Adam Gase. What is your guess with Ben Johnson and the Bears? What's it closer to?
Well, listen, I think it's the best hire they could have made. I support it 100%. You have talked about this extensively. I agree with you. If you have an established veteran quarterback and you need a head coach, then maybe adding a culture guy like a Vrabel or Harbaugh, who I know is an offensive mind, but he's more about, culture. When you have Herbert already there, fine. If you have a young quarterback that you're hoping will be a superstar, the best case scenario is pairing him with an offensive-minded head coach, so you don't have to go on the rolling wheel of, we lost our offensive coordinator. Like everything we just said about Jayden, I don't think it's going to happen. But what happens if Cliff Kingsbury does such a good job, he gets a head coaching job, and now Jayden's with a new offensive coordinator? That's potentially problematic. You worry about that a little bit with CJ in Houston as well, with a defensive-minded head coach. So I agree with the hire. But I'm really glad you prefaced it with LaFleur, Gase, meaning there are a lot more examples of the young offensive first-time head coach whiz kid not working than there are, it's a home run.
Right.
The home runs are recent, post-McVay, are the only real home runs are McVay and Kevin O'Connell. Yeah. And listen, I love Kevin O'Connell, but he's yet to win a playoff game, even though, they've been at home in both of them. And LaFleur, nobody probably has benefited from the playoffs expanding to 7 seeds from 6 more than LaFleur, because the last 3 years were missed the playoffs, 7 seed. And again, I think those are great head coaches. Those are the successes. The failures are, a dozen names. And so anyone acting like this is a sure thing, I think is foolish. But it's a bet, and I think it's a smart bet. And one thing you've been, I think, correct on is the Bears' attachment to the 85 Bears. Ugh. And that we want to be defense, and we want, it's 40 years ago. This, to me, signals they are okay maybe moving past that. Oh. You know what I mean? We're going offense, we're going young, we're going smart. And now there is huge expectation, Colin, on Caleb. Like, there is part of me, whenever I watch Jayden Daniels, I get a little, choked up because I'm like, this is the life that I saw Caleb living, taking the world by storm. And by the way, a sidebar, how much credit do I get for the take that it's going to be in the Super Bowl, Chiefs against a rookie quarterback from the NFC? I mean, I'm like 95% right. Now, I said it was going to be against Caleb, but I mean, I just got one door down from the greatest take of the year. If it's Chiefs against Jayden Daniels, I said the number 1 pick is number 2 pick. Basically, the best prediction of the season. But that's the year I thought Caleb could have this year, the one Jayden's having. So the expectations are now ratcheted because some from his own draft class crushed it, and they got the right head coach.
Okay, so we got about 2 minutes left, and I got to ask you. I defended the officiating with Kansas City. First of all, it's not challengeable. They tried it with PI. It didn't work. It's not challengeable. Second, Dwayne Wade, James Harden, a lot of the great players, Mahomes, they sell it. That's called manipulation. It's called leverage. I'm not going to. The other thing is, when the Will Anderson hit came, my take is, I looked at it and I went, oh, that's headhunting.
So thank you.
That's what I said.
Let me just, I know we don't have a lot of time.
Yeah.
The Will Anderson hit. Everyone that's being honest, you can hate this, but on the TV copy in real time, it's like, oh, yeah, he cracked him in the head.
Yeah.
And then they show the first replay. Watch Mahomes here.
Yeah.
And you're saying you watched that on TV and you weren't like, oh, that's high. And then you see that, which is what the ref saw. You're like, oh, that's high.
Yeah.
Then you see this and you're like, oh, that's high. It's only this angle, and I don't even know if they're going to show it, the side one, where you're like, oh, no, it was more glancing blow.
That's right.
And so that is, you can hate that call. That call gets made for every quarterback, certainly every Pro Bowl, much less star quarterback.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We went to the rule book yesterday. The rule.
That's the right call.
Yeah. The rule says to officials, when in doubt, call it. Like in baseball.
Call it. And by the way, and listen, I love Buck and Aikman. I love them. But what they missed on this was that one was reviewed by New York. And New York didn't overturn it because there was some, albeit marginal, contact from the helmet to Mahomes' face mask. So that call, if you hate that call, then you hate the rule. The other one was a bad call. I'm not denying it was a bad call, and Mahomes baited him into it. And we can, if we want to penalize quarterbacks, take their protections away when they bait them into it, that's fine. But let me just finish real quick and then go.
I don't like the sideline.
If they don't,
I don't like the sideline stuff with Mahomes, though.
Me neither.
He's got to get out of that. The league's got to change that.
So 2 points, because so first of all, this one here, this is why everyone's lost their mind. They're totally right. He was trying to bait him and he flopped. No penalty was called.
That's right.
Everyone's like, oh my God, there was no penalty. Everyone's mad at an idea that it could have happened. The bad call that we didn't show when he's running around and then slides late. I think it's dangerous. I don't like it. I think it's taking advantage of the rules. I get all that. Also, if they don't call this penalty, well, look, it's 1st and 10, Colin. He runs 5 yards. Oh, my God. The Chiefs would have been backed all the way up to 2nd and 5. Shut up. You know why the Texans lost? Because they scored 1 touchdown in a playoff game at Arrowhead, and they had one of the worst special teams performances in modern NFL history. Yeah. That's why they lost, because their vaunted defensive line got 3 sacks while the Chiefs' defensive line got 8. All the whining. And Will Anderson saying, oh, yeah, we knew going into the game it was going to be up against the refs. Then don't have the first time you hit the quarterback, you hit him in the neck. And if you know it's going to be you against the refs, maybe aim for the chest. So everyone can keep their complaining. There was one awful call in the NFL playoffs, game-changing call. The DPI against Baltimore at the end of the first half. Yeah. Nobody cares because nobody actually cares about bad officiating. They only care about trying to find a reason that the league, by the way, and I'm sorry I'm late, but you put me on this. This idea that it's rigged. Guys, you do understand the league is the 32 owners. So the 31 other owners are like, damn, I guess we're rigging it for Kansas City again. You don't think McNair in Houston is like, hey, guys, I don't want to rig it for the Chiefs? And they're like, shut up, doesn't matter. You know, it's so ridiculous. Thank you for bringing that up.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, you know, we needed an exclamation point with your rants today, and that was it, buddy. Good seeing you.
Yeah, see you, bye.